Hi, I'm Sam from Sam Lowe Sound of the Mix Review crew. Today I wanted to talk about drumming and specifically drum recording. I'm not going to talk about microphone technique or what microphone to use, where to place drums in the room. This is something that is sort of another level past just getting a basic drum sound recorded. Something that became very clear to me once I started working with session drummers and just general high quality drummers is how easy it is to record a drum kit and make it sound good when they are such balanced hitters. One major thing that I find younger drummers do is either lay into the hi-hats way too hard, or things like, they assume that, they're playing the part, but are they actually getting the sound from the kit that they want? Seasoned drummers tend to know their kit really well. They know how to tune them. They also reskin. They reskin the kit appropriately for the session. If you want an older 70s sort of sound, you don't always want brand new heads. You want a darker sound, shorter sound, compared to bright new heads, which might be perfect for a metal album or a rock album. When I go into a rock or a metal album, that's kind of the part of pre-production, is me talking with the drummer saying, right, what heads are you using? What kind of stick are you using? What's the head on your stick like? What sort of sound do you want? What are your references? What do you really like as a drummer? And as a fan of music, what are the sounds you like? So starting them with new heads on a kit at the start of a session, I find is really important. The heads are brighter, they snap and punch more. You don't have to EQ anywhere near as much to get that kind of clarity and top end cutting through, bursting through the mix. Like in a lot of modern rock and metal records call for that kind of energy. Another thing during recording is I'll just listen to those overhead microphones on their own and start to focus on how the drum is hitting the hats and their cymbals, how balanced they are. It's you want a bright, snappy snare drum, you start pushing that EQ and suddenly your hats are really harsh and sound too loud and, out of balance with the rest of the kit. As a result, your snare sounds good, but then the hats are just coming through. If you gate that snare, now you've got this kind of mess coming through every time the gate opens. Doesn't sound natural, doesn't sound good. Making the spill sound good is actually really important when drum recording. So encouraging that drummer to play those hats more balanced, just hold back. You got to ride them as a producer and as an engineer, to get them the sound which they're wanting to get. It's your job to know how to do that. And listening, like that's the biggest thing, is just listening to those overheads, listening to what the drummer's actually doing, rather than thinking, I'll just turn the hi-hat down later. Well, no, once it's in your snare mic and it's that, over the top loud, if you think about the action that's used for hitting the hi-hat, you've got all this leverage to really lay into it, and drummers get excited, they get enthusiastic about the song they're playing, which is great, but then they start to overplay, and suddenly it's just exploding through that snare mic, and your overheads sound off balance as well. So just encouraging them to play more balanced will just instantly help, your snare and your toms and everything sound much punchier and better, because you've got that more room to play with EQ and more room to not have those hats just cutting through and ripping your ears off every time. Things like tom parts, some drummers actually play assume that just because they're hitting the skin, that'll be enough to make a really big sound. But when you're working on rock and metal, you want them to actually hit them with intention every time. So you kind of need to keep reinforcing, re-encouraging them. Okay, this time I just need you to hit those toms harder. That fill where I know it's fast, but if we need to practice a few times to get some muscle memory going on where you're playing more consistently, great, let's do that. Let's take the time so that when they finally get that fill in, it sounds as energetic and big as as they're intending it to, as the song is sort of calling for. This is just some of the stuff that really helps, I think, sessions move along. The band know that you as an engineer are sort of in it with them, working to get the best sound, and that gives them the confidence, and then they can perform and do what they're there to do, rather than worrying about things like the sound. You can keep them focused, encourage them with their performance, and then bam, things just come together so easily when you get that balance technique going on. Hope that's helpful. I've actually got a PDF with a whole bunch of, it's kind of like my little cheat sheet for, when I need to get drum sounds that, if they're not working a certain way, what do I want to change up? What are things like key things that might help with that, like head choice, stick selection, the kind of muting we're using, whether you use some at all or whether you want to be really aggressive, the way the different kinds of muting affect the tone. All of these things are really, it's, as an engineer and me, I love geeking out on this drum stuff, but I find it really helps a session when you know an instrument that you've got to work with. I'm not a drummer, but I take a lot of effort. I put a lot of effort into understanding how that instrument works and what I can do to help it, because I know that a lot of drummers don't put all that extra time into thinking about these things. They love playing music. They love playing music with people, and I'm there to help them get their instrument sounding just amazing and perfect for the record which we're making. Hope that's helpful, and I'll see you next time.